If you're studying nursing, midwifery, or an allied health subject like Paramedic Science or ODP, your referencing style is the Harvard referencing style. And at Staffordshire University, we use the Harvard Cite Them Right version. This video is going to show you how to use that style and how to use Cite Them Right to help you to get your referencing correct. So there are two parts to referencing with the Harvard referencing style. There's the in-text reference, which we call the citation. This is when you're writing your assignment and you use a piece of evidence to back up what you're saying, and then you include the details of the citation in the text. And there's also the reference list. This goes at the end of your assignment and has the full details of that citation in alphabetical order by author. Now, this video is going to show you what to do for both of these. So first, let's think about the in-text citation. It's required when you use any piece of information that you've not made up yourself. It doesn't matter whether you've paraphrased that or you've quoted it directly. It doesn't matter if it's a sentence or an image or some statistics or a fact. It needs to be credited as coming from the particular author who wrote that or provided that information. There are a few times when you don't need a citation if you mention something that's common knowledge, or when you're describing something that you've observed yourself. So when you're describing what happened on placement, for example, or how a patient presented when you met them on placement. Also, if you do a survey yourself and you gather data and you present that information, that would also not require a citation. But every other piece of information you provide in your assignments will need to have an in-text citation and then an entry in the reference list. So let's just look at some examples of how to present a direct quote and paraphrases. So this sentence is a direct quote. We can tell that because it is in speech marks. And then in brackets afterwards, we've got the name of the author, the year that it was published, and because it's a direct quote, the page number where that quote came from, if it's from a book or a journal article. Then there's a full stop at the end of the citation, and then you can go on to explain what you mean by that. In a paraphrase, we put it into our own words. So here we're using the phrase according to the author to get us started, which is a good way to start with paraphrasing. According to Way et al., that's the team of authors who wrote this. We then put the date in brackets. We've mentioned them in the sentence by saying according to, so we don't need to put their name in the brackets. We don't need to repeat their name. According to Way et al., 2018, it is clear that. The other way to do it, though, without having to rely on a phrase like according to, or so-and-so stated that, or research by so-and-so indicates that, we can not use a phrase like that and completely put it into our own words, like the third example. And in this case, we would put the author's name in the brackets with the date because we're not mentioning them in the sentence. So if you want to, pause the video and read the three examples and note the differences between them. I would say that the bottom one is the gold standard. And this is because you're not breaking up your writing style by using a phrase like according to, and you are not doing a direct quote. Direct quotes only show that you've found the information. They don't demonstrate that you've understood it. So there are some rules to creating your reference list. We're thinking about the reference list now. The first rule is that you write the author's name. That's the first thing that you include. It's the most important bit of information. We include the author's name and their initial. You then need to include when. When was it published? And that is the year in brackets. You then say what it is, what it's called. A title. If it's an article title, it goes in single quotation marks. If it's a journal or a book title, it goes in italics. And if there is any addition information that's relevant, that goes in this section as well. And finally, where? Where can we find it? You need to provide the publisher information, the place of publishing, and then the publisher. or the web address or the DOI address of where you can find that particular item. So if you can remember this order, who, when, what and where, you can make sure that you've got all the information that you need in order to get your reference list entries correct. Here are some examples of reference list entries in a small reference list. We've got 4 sources here: a book, a piece of legislation, a web page, and a journal article. They're in this order because it's in alphabetical order by author. You can see we've got the initials of the authors stated here as well. In the in-text citation, we only had the surname Way et al. Didn't know their initials, but here we've got the author's initials as well. And that et al. With we're are et al. Et al. Is Latin for and all of them. It's abbreviated because in full it is et alia. The full stop indicates the abbreviation, and it's in italics because it's Latin. It's another language, so that must be in italics. Et al. Is when you have 4 or more authors. So before we jump into Cite Them Right, I just want you to see this quote from a level 6 nursing student. Once I started using Cite Them Right, the comments from markers regarding my references stopped. This meant that that particular student was able to not worry about their references because they knew they were getting them right. They were able to put their focus on making sure that their academic writing was as good as it could be. So let's have a little think about Cite Them Right now. I'm going to show you how to find it first. So this is the library homepage. Scroll down to Finding Resources. And underneath the library search bar, there are some links to useful research tools. There is a link directly to Cite Them Right, but also a link to the ref zone, which is what I'm going to jump to. You'll see there's lots of different types of referencing styles mentioned here on the menu, but I'm going to choose Harvard. And then there are some links and some useful information. There is a quick guide, 2 quick guides in fact. You can download those and use them to check your references, but I would strongly recommend becoming familiar with Cite Them Right. First thing you need to do, if you're off campus, you need to log in. Log in via your institution and type Staffordshire. Choose Staffordshire University in the list, and then you're logged in. If you're on campus, you won't need to do that. It would say that you are logged in already to Staffordshire University. Choose your referencing style. Of course, for us, that's Harvard. And then you've got a menu which has got all the different kinds of resources that you're ever going to need to reference. Books, journal articles, digital and internet, and legal are going to be the ones that you will need most regularly, I would suggest. I'm going to start with printed books. Now, although it says printed books, if you are looking at an ebook that has got page numbers, cite it like a printed book. If your ebook doesn't have page numbers, cite it as an ebook. So that means most of your books you will be citing as a printed book. Here's your citation order. Use this as a checklist to make sure you've got all the information you need. If you have a look at that list, you will see that it tells you how to format each of the sections, each of the bits of information. The year of publication in round brackets, for example, the title in italics. The punctuation is correct for each bit of information. And then there are some examples. You can see on the screen a book with 1 author and a book with 2 or 3 authors. It shows you what that looks like as an in-text citation. The first example, according to Cottrell, they're mentioning the author in the sentence, so it's just the year in brackets. In the second one, the author is not mentioned in the sentence, so the name is in brackets. And then in the reference list, it shows you that information presented as it should in the list, with the author's surname and initial, the year in brackets, the title in italics, the edition number, place of publishing followed by a colon, and then the publisher name followed by a full stop. You can see that's the same for 2 or 3 authors, and then we've got 4 or more authors. That's showing you et al. In the reference list, you can either use et al. Or name all the authors, but whichever you do it consistently. Don't use et al. For some and list all of them for others. Choose which way you're going to do it and follow that. If your lecturer has told you they want to see all the authors, then do that. So the great thing about Cite Them Right is this you try box. You can overwrite the prompts in the box with the information related to your source, and it will help you create the reference. So now I've put that in. Obviously, this is a fictitious book, but I've put in the relevant bibliographic details according to the citation order. All I need to do now is copy it and then paste that into alphabetical order into the reference list at the bottom of my assignment. Coming back to the menu, let's have a look at web pages. It's most likely that you will use a web page with an organisation as an author rather than a named person. So you need to know this set of information now. And then there's an example showing you what that looks like in the text and in the reference list. And of course you have a you try box that matches what you need to do to reference a web page. Let's have a look at journal articles. There's quite a bit more information that you need to reference a journal article, because you need the author as normal, the year of publication in round brackets as before, but then you need the title of the article, which is in single quotation marks, and then the title of the journal goes in italics, like the title of the book and the title of the web page was in italics. So you also need the issue information, the volume and issue number of the journal, and the page reference, the page range that article covers. If you found it online, you need the DOI or the web page and the access date. Let's have a look at those 2 examples. This one is an example of an electronic article with a DOI. We've got the authors, we've got the year in brackets, we've got the article title in single quotation marks, but not in italics. We've got the journal title in italics, but not in single quotation marks. And then we've got the volume number, which is 2. The issue number is 3, and that's in brackets with a comma. The page range, followed by a full stop. And then available at, and then this is the DOI link. The one with the URL is similar, except instead of the DOI link, it says available at, the web page address, and then we have an access date, accessed on the 27th of May 2021 in this case. That's important because it shows that you have looked at that web resource at that particular time. That's the same for web pages as well. And you've got a you try box for each of those types of reference. The other one I want to show you is the legal one, to show you legislation. And there's the citation order. You only need 3 bits of information, but this one's a little bit different. We don't have an author and we don't have the year in brackets. The title of the act, which includes the year and the chapter number, goes in italics at the beginning, and that's why this one catches people out, because it's not using that normal order that you've been used to with the author, the year and the title or titles. It breaks the rules a little bit. Ignore country and jurisdiction unless you're referring to Scottish or Northern Irish law or something like that. And then you say the URL that it's available at. So let's look at some examples. Here's the example of that in the text. You'll see that it's the name of the act is in italics and the year is part of the title. In the list, you've got the full name of the act, including the chapter number, and then the web address that it's available at, and then the date that you accessed it on. If you're referring to a section, it shows you how to do this here. So if you're not sure how to cite your legislation, come to Cite Them Right, use the try boxes to help you to get this right. If you find any other kind of sources that you need to cite, there will be a way of doing it here on Cite Them Right. If you need to, use the search box at the top to find the kind of resource, and make sure you're on Harvard, but then you can find out how to cite that particular type of resource. So how to get some support with your referencing. Watching this video has been a great first step, because you know you can come back to this and watch the demonstration of Cite Them Right again and again to help you to use it. You've got the ref zone where there's loads of extra information and support with referencing. We've also got more videos on referencing on our YouTube channel, so do explore that as well. Now, something else you can do is to book a just referencing appointment if you are worried about your referencing. Have a go at it. Take your piece of referencing, your piece of work with your reference list along to the appointment, and that can be looked at and we can give you some advice about how to improve it. You can find the information about how to do that on the appointments page on the library webpage. So I hope that's helped you to get started with your referencing, and best of luck with it.